Hello and welcome to this special lore-through for Bloodborne. As Bloodborne is, like any From Software game, open to some interpretation, I'm going to go over what is known. My connection is going to be bloodborne-wiki.com. Feel free to hit that up and give it a read if you'd like. In the meantime, though, I'm breaking up the lore by perspective. In this case, Bergenworth and the Healing Church. Let us begin. Bergenworth is an old place of learning that now lies abandoned. In its day, Bergenworth was home to scholars, and the school was headed by Provost Willem. The students learned history and archaeology. One day the scholars of Bergenworth had an encounter with the eldritch truth in the tombs below Yharnam. This encounter led to an inquiry into the cosmos from within the old labyrinth. Master Willem and his students began to study about the Great Ones, beings who may be called gods. Expeditions were sent into the labyrinth, but some of the investigators went mad upon encountering the eldritch truth. Medicine made from blood was developed by Bergenworth to stave off madness, but its use led to the dependence on blood ministration. Provost William had an epiphany. Humans need more eyes to become like the Great Ones. He then sought a third umbilical cord to line his brain with eyes. Disillusioned with the limits of human intellect, William valued in knowledge and wished to elevate his thoughts to that of a Great One. The scholars of Bergenworth also played a role in the Kos incident. The skulls of locals in the fishing village were forcibly searched for internal eyes. Even now, in the accursed villagers mill about in the nightmare while muttering their hatred of Bergenworth. The corpse of Kos was also found to be filled with small inhuman parasites. Lawrence and Willem had a disagreement, and Lawrence left Bergenworth. Lawrence went on to become the first vicar of the Healing Church, and the scholars of the church continued the work began at Bergenworth. Willem had admonished Lawrence to fear the old blood as Lawrence took his leave. This cautionary adage is still handed down among the vicars who head the Healing Church. Runesmith Carroll is another famous student of Bergenworth. Carroll focused on transcribing the words of the Great Ones as runes. Unlike the path taken by the Healing Church, this method of transcending humanity does not rely on blood. Though the school is now long abandoned and access restricted to by the Healing Church, Master Willem can still be found there, overlooking the lake that hides the vacuous Rom. Healing Church lore. The Healing Church has its roots in Bergenworth. Researchers there encountered a remnant of the eldritch truth and began exploring the labyrinths below Yharnam. Investigations led to further encounters with the eldritch truth. Great Ones that might be described as gods. Humans, however, were incapable of understanding the wisdom of the Great Ones, and some of the investigators went mad. Master Willem concluded that the only choice for humans to match the greatness of the Great Ones was to seek out more eyes. So he went as far as to seek the third umbilical cord of the infant Great One in order to line his brain with eyes. He did not believe in the usage of direct blood ministration, and admonished Lawrence to fear the old blood. Lawrence did not accept Willem's opinion, and his departure led to the founding of the Healing Church. Indeed, Lawrence became the first vicar of the church. The Healing Church is known as the source of blood healing. They performed experimental treatments on patients in their research, all to cultivate worthy blood. The church chooses nuns for their merits as vessels of blood and grooms them to become blood saints. The efficacy of this blood as a treatment for disease is a source of power for the church, as it lends legitimacy to their teachings. Deep within the grand cathedral of the healing church is a holy medium, the source of the eldritch blood. In reality, this is a left-behind great one, Ebritus. Blood ministration is the pursuit of communion. In other words, the church is seeking to refine blood to be like that of the great ones. To that end, the church often sends tomb prospectors to explore the labyrinth, but most go mad. Within the higher ranks of the healing church, there are two main groups, the School of Mensis and the Choir. The formation of the Choir began with investigations in the labyrinth. Its roots lie in the orphanage near the Grand Cathedral. The orphanage was a place of scholarship and experimentation, and the choir arose from these activities. The choir members are both the highest-ranking clerics of the church and scholars who continue the research began at Bergenworth. Members of the church cover their eyes to indicate their debt to the teachings of Master Willem. The choir claims that the land of Issas lies in contact with the cosmos, that allows the Great Ones to function on transcendental planes. The Great Chalice was the first holy chalice brought back to the surface since the days of Bergenworth, and it allows the choir to have audience with Ebritus. They believe that the cosmos are just above their heads, and so they search for the astral signs that with the left-behind Great One, Ebritus. They once used phantasms to attempt to make contact with the outer reachings of the cosmos, but failed to do so. The choir eventually split from the healing church. The other major division within the healing church is the School of Mensis. The School of Mensis is founded by Yargul, the unseen village. The hunters of Yargul are in reality mere kidnappers. The church is also special hunters pretending to be beggars on the street. No one is safe. Even the nuns of the healing church find themselves to be targets of Mensis's hunt. The healing church has a storied history with many legendary figures. Among the most impactful was the first church hunter, Ludwig. Ludwig's healing church workshop began to deviate from Gehrman's techniques to prepare for battles with more terrifying beasts. Lawrence, the first vicar of the church, became the first cleric beast. Perhaps Ludwig sought the means to defeat future cleric beasts? In his endeavors, Ludwig was guided by a shining light, the Holy Moonlight Sword. Unfortunately, he was eventually claimed by the hunter's nightmare and became a horrifying beast. Despite his sad fate, the Holy Blades, possessors of the Radiant Sword Hunter badge, have inherited his will, and they exist as the remnant of his ancient line of heroes. Another of the healing church hunters was a man named Simon. Unlike most hunters, he disliked guns, and the church workshop created a bow specifically for him. Many of the comrades scoffed at Simon's preference. Indeed, throughout the ages, there have been many unique weapons, some favored and some not. Tonitris is one such weapon. It was created by Archibald, who is known as an infamous eccentric from the Healing Church workshop. The hunters of his day did not really take to the use of Tonitris. On the other hand, he was also invented the bolt paper, which is widely used among many hunters. Archibald was fascinated by the sparks of his undead dark beasts and dedicated his life to their reproduction. Curiously, his methodology was very similar to that of Bergenworth. Not all the notable figures associated with the church were quite so scientific. The martyr Logarius and his band of executioners believed in their righteous destiny and operated a secretive, fanatical workshop steeped in mysticism. Logarius's executioners adored hand-to-hand combat, and wielded large weapons to slaughter the vile bloods in Cainhurst. The executioner's clothing, and the holy Shaw in particular, became the basis for all church attire. Logarius thought that the vile bloods of Cainhurst were fiendish creatures and had to have their blood, and that their blood threatens the purity of the church's communion. He led his band of executioners to Cainhurst, but they were unable to destroy the ruler of the vile bloods. According to the executioner Alfred, Logarius became a blessed anchor, guarding us from evil. Logarius donned the crown of illusions to prevent anyone from discovering the secret of the vile bloods. The Healing Church has many secrets and works quite hard to keep them. The Healing Church assassin Brandor killed a former compatriot who became a cleric beast. Ever since that day, he has worn his ally's scalp as a hat and secluded himself beneath the cathedral in the hunter's nightmare. The church gave him a soundless bell. Those who can hear the bell are those who know the church's secrets, those who are marked for death, and Brader will pursue them eternally. Brader believes that he can be purified if he is able to expel the tainted blood from his body. The School of Mensis is performing a ritual that requires a special newborn. The ritual is hidden by the spider of Bergenworth, Vacuous Rom. Mikulesh, the host of the Nightmare of Mensis, knows of Rom. Indeed, he wishes for Kos to grant eyes to Mensis as she did for Rom. Kos, however, is dead. Mensis was granted audience with Murgo thanks to a third cord, but the encounter resulted in the stillbirth of their brains. Instead of Kos, the Great One that is beckoned by a baby's cry atop the nightmare Mensis is Murgo's wet nurse. In place of Murgo's actual mother, the wet nurse is the one who gives sustenance. The Great Ones that inhabit the nightmare are sympathetic in nature and often answer when called upon. The Great Ones are not, however, all benevolent. Some are quite rotten and evil. Mensis retrieved an immense brain from within the nightmare, but it was filled with evil eyes on the inside. Great Ones can impact human thoughts and actions without the human's knowledge, as evidenced by the inadvertent worshippers of Oedon. In the end, it is difficult to say what the extent of the dark rituals of Mensis are performed by their own will, and to what extent is the influence of a Great One. The same can be said of their desire to summon the long-dead Kos. It is only known that one result of their ghastly rituals was the One Reborn. Among the secrets guarded by Brader is the Church's research on human subjects. High ministers of the Healing Church have concocted odd medicines that numb the brain for use in their strange experiments. In the early days of the Healing Church, cerebral patients would imbibe water. Within, the brain fluid would writhe and churn, the initial markings for internal eyes. That will conclude this session of Lore-Thru. I hope you enjoyed.